Hey guys, on the road again. I was thinking about spirituality and being born into the spiritual realms and what that represents. And in different religions, there's different ceremonies and symbolic aspects of water and all that stuff being submerged. And I don't have all the answers. I just have what I've studied my whole life and my teachers and all that. Different religions and views, kind of assimilating things. But often in life, what we do, I do brand development. So, identity, we look at identity. Identity is a number of values, characteristics, attributes that come together to form your identity. The way we develop character is we identify values and then we live those values without fail, no matter what is happening around us or no matter what people think of us. We live those values. And that creates consistent character, and consistent character creates trust and forms an identity. It forms an identity to the outside world, to how other people see us, and it forms an identity within ourselves, how we see ourselves, and creates a sense of structure, so we're not just floating everywhere. So in life, especially kind of what I call man's world, this kind of created world that we live in, that is often based on symbology and agreements, is we have many things that, especially with the lack of wisdom these days, and many things that people can easily adopt or identify with when they're young. And often these things can be fleeting, meaning temporary, as all things of the material world are temporary. So, say you grow up and you identify with, fashion or mainstream culture, and your identity is based around being hip and current on trends and fashion and things like that. Well, if there's a time in your life that, money's slimmer and you're not able to uphold that lifestyle, all of a sudden you're going to be crushed and feel like, who am I, and that everything's lost, so to say. Now, that's just one example of many, but, there's many things that we identify with and invest in. Now, the things that are built on sand or the temporary world will collapse, guaranteed. Some things last entire lifetimes, some things last 5 years, some things last a year, but they will all collapse. So it's the danger of building on sand, so to say. And so getting back to the topic of being reborn in the spiritual realms, it's not so much that we no longer identify with things of the material world. It's just that we're first reframe our identity within the spiritual realms. And what that means is that when you hopefully remember yourself as a soul, or have some sort of remembrance of being a soul. For me, it was going back to my childhood and remembering different states of knowing that I had as a child, that everything's okay, and that and then through my spiritual teachers, as I became more conscious into the material realms as an adult, you kind of step further away from those knowing realms. So you have spiritual teachers, hopefully, with earnest guidance that help you kind of get back in touch with that. So in identifying with the spiritual realms, remembering that you're a soul that incarnates into a material world and then passes back into the spiritual realm in a number of different cycles based on your agreements and your soul intention, we tend not to take things so personally. And we don't look at the material world the same way. We honor its sacredness and its beauty and its temporalness. And we look at our lives and we say, okay, I've got this opportunity, this window of time to accomplish whatever my soul's intention is here. I would say for most people, it's probably to spread love and to be love, to bring more love into the world, because this world's a dark place. To speak up for ourselves, to speak up for the well-being of ourselves and others, tends to be the mission for most people. And there's other people with varying degrees of different experiences. But to be reborn in the spiritual is to recognize that as an individuation of spirit, as a soul upon this earth plane, you were never really born. And so you never really die, and you start to identify with yourself in those terms. Now, it seems absurd. It's hard to have the conversation with other people about it. It's hard to integrate. We still have our biological self that is fearful of its own survival. All those things are part of the human experience and make this very sacred and very real on a lot of levels for us. So it's important to take this material world seriously also. It's not to bypass it by any means, but it's to see things within context. And that's what you build upon in your identity. You build upon the spiritual realms, the eternal realms that go on and live on forever. So when we start identifying as spiritual beings, we no longer look at age as much of an issue. We never look at our accomplishments as much of an issue. We accept what the world is bringing to us and what the universe is bringing to us, and we work with it on a day-by-day basis, accepting fully the current situation that we're in and not fighting it. Maybe we'll have to cry. Maybe we'll lose someone we love. Maybe we'll go through all these earthly things, and it'll keep us directed on the appropriate path. So I just wanted to make a short video about spiritual renewal, being reborn, and the symbology of it, and identifying with the spiritual realms, which are eternal. So when things in the material world are taken from us, which eventually everything will be, then we're not left frightened and scared and not able to identify with who we really are anymore. And it gives us the spiritual strength to maintain ourselves through all sorts of situations. We always have the sun, there's always the air, there's always the water, and there's always ourselves to take care of ourselves. And luckily for everyone, there's lots of dogs and cats in the world too, which will bring you lots of love. So no matter what you're going through, know that you're eternal, know that everything's temporary, and have a little faith and take it in stride. Show up, spread some love, so when you pass from this incarnation to the next, you don't regret not doing so. So have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.